as I begin to speak after hearing the moving tributes to René Cassin and Raphael Lemkin, I'm reminded of the words of the cantor on Yom Kippur. Hineni ha'ani mimas. I am inadequate in word and in deed, for I have neither the knowledge or wisdom of the scholar, nor the experience of the survivor. I only know what my parents taught me as a young man, the profundity and pain of which I began to understand only years later, that there are things in Jewish history, in human history, that are too terrible to be believed, but they're not too terrible to have happened. Oswiecim, Majdanek, Dachau, Treblinka, these are beyond vocabulary. Words may ease the pain somewhat, but they may also dwarf the tragedy. Indeed, the Holocaust was uniquely evil in its genocidal singularity, where biology was inescapably destiny, a war against the Jews in which my Rebbe Eli Wiesel reminds us, a war against the Jews in which not all victims were Jews, but all Jews were victims. Indeed, we meet this evening at an important moment of remembrance and reminder, of bearing witness, and indeed of public warning. In the aftermath of the 60th anniversary of the Genocide Convention, spoken of sometimes as the Never Again Convention, but which has tragically been violated again and again. On the occasion of the 15th anniversary of the unspeakable genocide in Rwanda, unspeakable because this genocide was preventable, where 1 million Rwandans, mostly ethnic Tutsis, were murdered in less than 100 days. And on the 6th anniversary of the genocide by attrition in Darfur. It is astonishing. One cannot really almost describe the pain. It is astonishing that the crime whose name we should even shudder to mention, namely genocide, that we should be entering upon a genocide in the 21st century, 60 years after the Genocide Convention, and in the 6th year of that genocide. And I'm reminded of the words spoken to me today by Jibril Hamed, survivor of the Rwandan genocide, when he said today, this afternoon in a meeting, I appeal to you, I beg of you, remind the people this evening, remind them not to forget us, not to forget us. And I remember those words, they resonate for me from other killing fields, let alone the Shoah. Not to forget us, because as you meet this evening, people are dying in Darfur. And so on this anniversary of anniversaries, we must ask ourselves two questions. What have we learned? Qu'est-ce que nous avons appris? And what must we do? Qu'est-ce que nous devons faire? The first lesson is the importance of Zachor, of remembrance itself. For as we remember the 6 million Jewish victims of the Shoah, defamed, demonized, and dehumanized as prologue and justification for their genocide, for their murder, we have to understand that the mass murder of 6 million Jews, 1.5 million children amongst them, and millions of non-Jews is not a matter of abstract statistics. For as we say on Yom HaShoah, wherever we commemorate it in whatever part of the world, that unto each person there is a name. Unto each person there is an identity. Each person is a universe. As our sages tell us, Hametzil Adam Echad Kilu Hitzil Olam Kulo. If you save a single person, it is as if you have saved an entire universe. But if you kill a single person, it is as if you have killed an entire universe. And so the abiding imperative that we are each, wherever we are, the guarantors of each other's destiny. Kol Yisrael Arevim Zel Hazeh. The second enduring lesson of the Holocaust is that the genocide of European Jewry succeeded not only because of the machinery of death and the technology of terror, but because of the state-sanctioned ideology of hate. It was this teaching of contempt, this demonizing of the other. This is where it all began, as the Supreme Court of Canada recognized, and I quote, "The Holocaust did not begin in the gas chambers. It began with words," said the court. "These are the chilling facts of history. These are the catastrophic effects of racism." And we are witnessing yet again a state-sanctioned incitement to hate and genocide whose epicenter is Ahmadinejad's Iran. And I distinguish between Ahmadinejad's Iran and the people and publics of Iran, who are otherwise themselves the objects of mass targeted domestic repression. But what we are witnessing in Ahmadinejad's Iran is the advocacy of the most horrific of crimes, namely genocide, embedded in the most virulent of hatreds, namely anti-Semitism, dramatized by the parading in the streets of Tehran, put up on billboards everywhere, and draped in the emblem of a Shihab 3 missile, the words which you've read and know about, "Wipe Israel off the map," but perhaps not the 4 words which often accompany it. As the Imam says, that this is a religiously sanctioned incitement to genocide. Let there be no mistake about it. Incitement to genocide is a crime in and of itself. Taking action to prevent it, as the Genocide Convention obliges us to do, is not a policy option. It is an international legal obligation of the highest order. I say this because a person like Ahmadinejad, who denies the Holocaust as he incites to a new one, who is engaged in a massive domestic repression of the rights of his own people, symbolized by the targeting of the religious minority, the Baha'i in Iran, who is a standing and in standing violation of UN Security Council resolutions in respect of becoming an atomic power. For such a person to have addressed the United Nations Conference on Human Rights shames the cause of human rights itself, assaults the integrity of the United Nations Charter under whose protective cover he had a podium, and betrays the sanctity of Zachor, of remembrance itself. Ahmadinejad should not have been an invited guest at the podium of the United Nations today. He belongs in the docket of the accused. The third lesson is the dangers of crimes of indifference, of conspiracies of silence, the precursors of inaction, and which aided and abetted the genocide of European Jewry. The bystanders, the accomplices, they helped make the Holocaust possible. Indeed, we meet on the shores of Lake Geneva, across from which is Evian, reminding us of the Evian Conference, reminding us that at the time the world was divided into 2 places, places where the Jews could not live and places from which the Jews could not leave. Again, as Elie Wiesel reminds us, indifference and inaction always means coming down on the side of the victimizer, never on the side of the victim. Let there be no mistake. Indifference in the face of evil is not only acquiescence with evil, it's complicity with evil itself. A fourth lesson: if the 20th century was the age of atrocity, it was also the age of impunity. Few of the perpetrators were brought to justice. And so, just as there must not be any refuge for bigotry, any sanctuary for hate, so there must not be any safe haven for the génocidaires, for the perpetrators of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide in our time. The fifth enduring lesson of the Holocaust is that it was made possible not only because, as it has been spoken of, the bureaucratization of genocide, as Robert Lifton has put it, but because of the trahison d'éclair, because of the complicity of the elites, physicians, church leaders, judges, lawyers, engineers, architects, educators, and the like. Holocaust crimes were also the crimes of the Nuremberg elites. Again, as Elie Wiesel, my Rebbe, put it so well, cold-blooded murder and culture did not exclude each other. If the Holocaust proved anything, it is that a person can both love poems and kill children. And so it's our responsibility always to speak truth to power as we hold power accountable to truth. And may I close with a word to the survivors of the Holocaust. For you are the true heroes of humanity. You have witnessed and endured the worst of inhumanity, but somehow you found in the resources of your own neshamas the courage to go on, in the depths of your own humanity, the courage to build, to rebuild your lives as you rebuilt the communities amidst which you lived. And so together this evening, let us remember and pledge, not as idle rhetoric, but as a commitment to action, that never again will we be indifferent to incitement and hate, that never again will we be silent in the face of evil, that never again will we ignore the plight of the vulnerable, that never again will we be indifferent in the face of mass atrocity and impunity, that never again will we be indifferent to racism and anti-Semitism. As Elie Wiesel said this evening, Jews died in the Holocaust, but anti-Semitism did not die, though Jews died because of anti-Semitism. And we are witnessing yet again an old, new, escalating, sophisticated, global, virulent, and even lethal anti-Semitism that overlaps with classical anti-Semitism, but which is distinguishable from it, that found initial juridical expression in the Zionism as racism resolution, but has gone dramatically beyond it. A new anti-Semitism for which we almost need a new vocabulary to define it, but which, in the exigencies of time for one-liners, can best be defined as a discrimination against, denial of, assault upon the right of the Jewish people in Israel to live as an equal member of the family of nations, indeed, the right of Israel and the Jewish people to live. And so we must act against racism, against hate, against anti-Semitism, mass atrocity, and injustice, and against the crime of crimes, as I mentioned, whose name we should even shudder, tremble to mention, genocide, and always, always against indifference, against being bystanders to injustice. For in what we say, or more importantly, in what we do, in our maasim tovim, in our good deeds, we will make a statement about ourselves as a people. We will be making a statement about ourselves as people. For in our day, more than ever, qui s'excuse, s'accuse. Whoever remains indifferent indicts himself or herself. Jamais plus. Jamais plus.